on this computer, ready to roll. We are now recording. Welcome, Jenny. So, Jenny, it's Jenny Boneva, yes? Am I pronouncing this correctly?
Yes, perfectly.
Jenny Boneva. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited about this one this week because I stumbled across Jenny's profile on LinkedIn and it said, voted top 50 women in cybersecurity by SC magazine. Is that right, Jenny?
Yes.
Yeah. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. So I started to dig into Jenny's profile and I saw all the similarities that we across the Americas, I know I get a little bit of the tail end of the Western European crowd on my podcast, but it's the end of the evening. And so we tend to have just the Americas, right? And I thought, oh, look at that. All the associations are there. You live, where do you live, Jenny?
I live in Sofia, Bulgaria.
Bulgaria. And I thought, well, that would be a very interesting guest for us. Not only because we're having somebody's perspective from Europe, but Bulgaria especially, because we don't hear much about Bulgaria across the world. So this will be exciting. Also because Jenny has been voted the top 50 women in cybersecurity. So I'd like to touch on that subject. So I think this will be fun. Jenny, why don't we start here? Give us a little background. I'd like to go really back early. Let's go back to school days. What were you studying back then? I'm curious, the top 50 women in cyber? I think it might be mathematics and encryption, but was it art? What were you studying in school?
Well, I've been studying informatics from the beginning. That was a very interesting topic for me. And everybody was surprised because in Bulgaria, it was not so popular and it was like not so popular for women as well. Everybody were wondering, what's that actually that I'm going for, but I was convinced that it's interesting for me and I will go for it. Later I further went to this kind of university where I studied informatics, but I combined it with the business because it's called business informatics, because I wanted to see how the technology is linked with the business. And later on it was very, very useful because when I started, my first work was at can I say names of the companies?
Yeah, you can say anything. This is an open podcast. You can do anything. We've got no rules here. We just want to get great information to people.
Yeah, it's not a secret actually. I've been working for more than 10 years for KPMG Bulgaria, and this was really consultancy business. And we were consultants for IT and information security, but we had to know about the business of our clients and how this relates to the business. Yeah. And everything, it was so related that later on when I come back to see which steps I took for studying from the university to the work, it was like the right decision. I mixed the right ingredients, the business with the IT, and later I was so interested in the information security, so I went to this area to develop further. But that was it. That was a choice, strange choice for everyone that knows me. But I decided to study this and to see what will be. And I'm not a really person that is so much technical person. I'm much more for the strategy, for how this relates to the business, how the information technologies, how the information security influence the business. And now I'm also this kind of consultant, more like information security at the governance level, like more linked to the top management, providing advices to the management how to manage their information security strategies, directions, their vision, how to implement the appropriate, let's say, management decision for the business. It's all related to the business, and it started like that, and now I'm still this kind of advisor.
Well, so going back to the fact that you were studying mathematics in school and you mentioned that not many women were doing this, talk to us about kind of fortitude and resilience, because I'm sure you had to carry a burden, right? And I don't know if you've kept up with the news of what's going on in the United States and across, well, certainly in the United States, right? Lots of controversy on this kind of subject matter. You know, people are easily offended. Now, I look at somebody like you who you must have gone through a little bit of pain, right? And yet you've come out the other end, you're a champion. Now, tell us about that. Go back to where, you know, at school, you're studying mathematics, maybe you were the only woman or just one amongst few. What did it take psychologically for you to move through that and become, look, I'll flatter you, the champion you are today, right? But tell us about that.
Well, I didn't see the difference at school, actually. at least in Bulgaria, mathematics is more related to girls actually in
Oh, is
Bulgaria.
that right? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
cool. Okay.
Because it's something straightforward and it's really related to girls. And I didn't see any difference at school, at university, but later at work, it was the big challenge, I guess. Um, it's because it's different kind of world where later on, actually not when I was consultant, but when I tapped into the information security area, because in the information security area you are going sometimes and working sometimes with military people, and these are, I mean, completely different world. And there it was a bit difficult and different actually, because I had a lot of challenges to express myself, because it's like sometimes like you don't exist in the room, being a woman. It was strange, actually. I had few of these situations, but I managed to went through this. And
How? That's what I want to know. I want to know how. How did you get through this? Like, what was happening in your head? What were you saying to yourself so that you ended up becoming a champion, as opposed to, let's say, one of the victim culture that we hear so much about? That's what I'm interested in right there.
well, you have to approach it differently. Like you have to prove every time. You have to prove yourself. Going into the room full with guys with like talking about serious problems, you have to always prove that you deserve to be there, and you have to accept it. And that's it. I mean, it doesn't matter if you are okay with this or not okay with this. In some situations, you have to prove that you deserve to be there, and
Right.
that's it. You accept it.
Yeah, yeah. So what you're saying is you're accepting the fact that you are placed, I don't quite want to say at a disadvantage. I don't think that's quite the right terminology, but you're saying accept the fact that it's going to be a tough ride and then move forward. I mean, clearly you've moved forward. You're the president or vice president
Vice president.
Of ISACA, your chapter of ISACA, right? So to achieve and move forward like that, are you simply saying just guts and grit? Just go? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I mean, if you have to follow your passion and your dreams, I mean, it costs different things to pay. You have to pay it, and that's it. I mean, you have to accept some things. The main goal is important, and if you want to go there and to be somewhere, you have to do the right things. And if you have to prove it 100 times, just prove it 100 times, and that's it. I mean, some things you cannot change. I mean, and if you want to change the things, I think the best way is by giving great example, instead of going against some things or complaining or something. I mean, just do it, show to the others that it's possible to do it, and that's it. This is the way how it should be. And I
Right.
hope that the things will change soon, because we are not the times has changed, and it's like very, very popular now. The profession is very popular. Women are very motivated to go to these positions,
Yeah.
let's say. Different societies accept women differently. It's a matter of time. We have to go
Sure.
to this direction and show the examples.
Yeah, I mean, look, the world is getting so much better. We're in such a better position than we were, 10 years ago, never mind 100 years ago for, any different group of person. But listen, good for you. That's amazing. So clearly you're just like, I'm just going to get on with it in life. That's the simplest attitude. That's Occam's razor, right? The simplest method is probably the best one, right? So well done. Okay, so you got through university. Did you jump into KPMG, right?
The first job, yes. I
Okay.
went to a KPMG working for an IT department. First, I worked for a help desk department. It was very interesting because
Sorry,
I
what department? I couldn't quite hear it. Health?
help desk, help
Oh,
desk
help
department,
desk. Yeah.
supporting the consultant. And it was quite interesting because this was the other side, not from the business side, because KPMG is more related to the business side of the company is the consultancy, and the administrative part is IT, payroll, other departments. So I was in the IT, which was the administrative part, and I was supporting the business part. like consultancy. Later, like 3 years later, I decided just to move from the IT to the consultancy because I was quite curious actually. I like the way how people were doing their job, because it's at these companies like KPMG, you have a variety of clients. It's never, you cannot go to the routine. You never duplicate a project. I mean, very rarely. Every project is different, every company is different, and you learn so many things for a small amount of time. You learn a lot of things, different varieties of opportunities for learning. So it was great experience there. And actually, the funny part is that first I went, I was working for ISACA, that was for KPMG. That was the first meeting of ISACA 10 years back. And they made it in the conference room of KPMG, and I was supporting all the people with the computers.
Okay.
Invited me to stay, and I was like, oh, it's so nice, so many computer geeks, and they're talking about IT stuff. So it's a kind of, I don't know, coincidence or not really.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So with the ISACA chapter, so you joined ISACA at that point, right? And now you're the vice president of your chapter. Fantastic. Tell us about some of the work that ISACA is doing in Bulgaria. Like what's the agenda, and what kind of things are you seeing in the marketplace in Bulgaria? What are the threats? Let's start moving into our cyber world.
Well, what we are doing is like we are making our community, local community from professionals here, and we are organizing a lot of events for them. And the most important thing is that we promote ISACA, all the programs. We have a lot of programs for trainings and for certifications in the area of IT, information security, risk management for IT, and the most popular one, IT audit.
Wait, which one was the most popular one? IT
audit certifications, very popular, very well known for IT auditors world. So we are promoting this. We are promoting the programs, and we organize these events and meetings to communicate with local professionals. And it's very nice because we have very stable community here with professionals that we are, you know, sometimes they're contacting me with simple questions when they have problems, to exchange knowledge, to share problems if we have. And this is very useful locally. I want to share something very important for ISACA, which is we are very proud of. ISACA has created a very, very famous framework for IT governance. I don't know if you know about this. It's called COBIT. It's a COBIT, and it's really very useful and very well known worldwide for implementation of a better program of your IT risk.
For our listeners, I'll bring it up on my screen in a minute. What would be the website to go to? Just do ISACA COBIT and it should come up, right?
Oh, just...
Let's see. You're on number 5, aren't you, these days? The COBIT framework's the 5th version? I think so.
No, 2019 is the last one.
Okay, but I thought it's this, right? I'm on the right spot?
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Effective governance.
Yeah. So COBIT 2019.
Yeah. So actually, this is probably a good subject matter. How did this framework come together?
Well, it's a number of controls, actually. And you have a number of controls and objectives that you can implement in your organization.
Yeah.
And this will give you an opportunity to select the appropriate objectives for your business processes, to customize the framework for your organization. And the most important, to see where you are against the best practices and how you can go further. It has implemented maturity model inside of this framework. So you can evaluate your current status, and you can see how many steps and what's necessary to do in order to go further for the next level. And it's very important to know how to implement it. The first customization phase is very important to identify appropriate scope of the project, for which processes you want to see the technologies. And actually it provides a lot of benefits. And the most important is that you can optimize your risk because you have better control of your technologies, and you can optimize the resources because you can use exactly what's important for your organization.
Now, you mentioned optimizing risk. That's interesting. I was invited on a panel to sit on the panel a few weeks ago, virtual panel, and we were talking about risk-based security. So I want to talk about this, but let me first ask you, have you heard of NIST, N-I-S-T, NIST?
Yes, yes.
Right. So in North America, everybody talks NIST, right? I've heard of COBIT. I haven't done too much with it, right? What's the difference? Because I think in Europe, NIST is not nearly as popular. Is that correct?
No, it's not so
Right.
popular. We are based on ISO standards for
Yeah.
information security, for example, but they are not different because COBIT combines the best practices of NIST. COBIT combines the best practices of ISO, the best practices of NIST, the best practices for any other recommendations of the agencies. So COBIT is the summary of everything, but presented in different way. So you can select which one you want to implement in your organization. This framework is world recognized because it's very easy to implement and very flexible. You can start with a little bit more limited scope, and then you can extend it for the next year, for example. And it's very, very useful.
So if a person wanted to jump onto the sort of the COBIT train, where would you suggest they start? So let's say somebody listening here, runs an organization, 10,000 people, let's say, or less. So something kind of smallish. And they've used NIST, but perhaps they're doing business with European customers that don't use NIST or haven't even heard of it. What's the first step for somebody to do COBIT?
The first step is to make real research what's needed for their organization, really which framework will fit the best. And they can find a lot of materials and trainings. If you want to understand in deep what's behind this name or in this framework, they can get a separate training. They can understand more, which is a must actually. You have to understand what's behind this kind of frameworks and this kind of recommendations. So you can get a training, you can prepare yourself, you can have the materials and you can go through the materials by yourself. I mean, it's not necessary to have training. Different kind of trainings. You can ask your local chapter if they can provide a training for you. Normally we don't have the resources to, and we don't have so much requests for this separate face-to-face trainings, and maybe online training is the best option for you. But for some countries, it's, for example, UK, it's very popular. They have the resource and they can have the training, face-to-face personal training.
The ISACA people do it, do they?
Yes, certified, not always ISACA people. They are certified presenters and trainers. You can be certified, you have to go through the certification process of ISACA to be certified to train people of this framework and any other training that we provide.
I wonder, training is an interesting area, right? You've got, like, I've got customers that, have a lot of amazing, cybersecurity equipment in their data centers, in their networks, right? Ours, other people's. I mean, we're talking people who've got $100 million worth of stuff, and yet they still get hacked. It's never through the equipment, is it? It's always through misconfiguration or human error of some other kind, phishing attacks, social engineering. Now, are you seeing the same thing over there? Because then what happens is you take people into training programs like this one, or even just cyber awareness. Here we are, right? Cyber Month. We're in October 2020 for those people listening sometime in the future. We want to bring awareness to our teams. And so we spend all this money, we train people and give them anti-phishing training. And the next day there's a fat cat tripping over a mouse and they click on the video, because why not? So I mean, the efficacy of training is a challenging thing, I think. Talk to us about that. What do you think?
Well, it's very, very challenging because information security is very wide topic. I mean, it's not only technology that you can put these technical measures. You have the administrative part, you have the operational part, and but the most important thing, I guess, for me, is that if you can make it to work together as a team with all the employees of your organization, because talking about awareness trainings, like phishing simulations and stuff like this to see where we are, we make our people to feel like they're from the other side, and they are always stressed that if something happens, it will be their fault. And all the awareness trainings and phishing simulations, I will do it differently. I mean, it's very important to work as a team and to present it to your employees like joint task. It's a joint project to survive, to catch the incident at the beginning, and to make them part of the process, not like they're going to be tested for something. And you are talking about awareness programs and stuff like this, but it depends how you present this to your people and how they will see it through this awareness program. If you can make it, if you can make your program to work to make them think that they're part of your information security, and you know that they are happy if they catch something to report it to feel free to call you, not being afraid to call you because of your title, like Chief Information Security Officer. That's the it's kind of communication issue also. We make a lot of awareness programs, but it's like just to push a program that they can see a video or answer a few questions at the end. Is it really awareness?
I know.
And I think this is the major problem here. That people are there to work for something else. They have the different profile. So you have to make them really being interested of your topic. Otherwise, I mean, they cannot remember this, and they're involved in different tasks.
Yeah. You know, we need to do what the Silicon Valley, you know, sort of social media companies have done in a certain sense, because you look at companies like Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Snapchat and all of them, right? They've solved for gravity. And what I mean by solved for gravity is they've made themselves the center of the world, gravity, and everybody just comes to them. And, you know, we all know this, Facebook's the largest media company in the world, and yet they produce zero media. That's the new model. And I think companies that are still being birthed today outside of that model are set at a disadvantage, you know, because why is it we volunteer to put all our stuff on LinkedIn? I mean, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? All they did was created a platform for us to kind of throw up our lives onto. And right, you know, we voluntarily give people all this information, and then we're proud of it. And so we stay with it. It's very sticky, as they say. And, you know, we want to contribute. I mean, look at LinkedIn, 500-600 million members. Probably 180 million, I think, are active, but still 180 million people always trying to provide essential information for free, right, to people they don't know.
Yes.
Wow. Right. So I think what you're saying is, how do we make all the employees of a corporation go, yes, you know, responsibility of security is on everyone's shoulders, and I want to contribute. That we don't have. You're absolutely right. People don't want to email the CISO. They're scared of the CISO, or they don't care, or they care and, you know, they're not sure. A communication issue, as you say. Yeah. I wonder if a CISO would build some kind of application that, you know, people felt was very friendly. And if there was a link that they weren't sure whether to click, there's that fat cat tripping over a mouse. That's going to be funny, but I'm not sure. If they were to send it to this app, I mean, you know, we have an email for that, right? We do at our office, we send it to my CISO, you know, these kinds of things. But I work at a security company. We're all paranoid security people, right? So we function very well as right, yeah, and like you. But most people do not work for cybersecurity companies. And so, you know, this is an afterthought for them. This is front and center for us. Yeah, yeah. It needs to be a little bit more friendly, perhaps.
Yes, communication is the key, and friendly communication, and to make to extend your team within the information security department. Just extend it. They're all
another
together.
brilliant idea. I wonder how you could extend, as a CISO, how could we extend our team to every team member? Badges are kind of popular. I roll my eyes at.
You have to point champions. If you point champions in different departments, and yeah, ask them to give as an example the champion of this department and the other department, champion for information security, and they can be involved, much more involved in this topic. And the champions will work locally in the department, which is also very good to have local people in the different departments. So to extend the network of information security internally. I think
there has to be, and there has to be public recognition for champions, because people love that. There has to be a little extra, what I call jingle in the jeans, a little cash, right? A little bonus at the end of the year. So you just tie it to the performance review program. That's easy.
Yes.
You know? But I think Google, they did a massive study in 2000 and I think it was around 11, 12, where of course, they have a massive staff of their own, but then they also looked outside of that, the other big valley kind of staff members. And they found that public recognition was actually more important than financial remuneration. I thought that was quite interesting, right? So we can do that for free. Somebody can.
Actually, and people like it and they feel motivated from this, which is very important for work. To feel motivated.
Yeah.
It's a great experience to have this in your organization. I mean,
now, when we were chatting last week, just to prep for our appointment today, you mentioned you're now running your own consultancy. Is that correct? Is that what you're doing? Okay,
I'm working at freelancer, yes, in the area of information security and data privacy with regard to this new regulation.
Right. Yes. Let's talk about that. Right. So you're talking GDPR, right?
Yes, in Europe, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. It's very, very important because of the huge penalties if you do not comply with the regulation. But it had to, I mean, it was somehow stressful at the beginning, but with great impact for the information security, I would say, because the awareness was raised quite high. And at the beginning, the regulation was not so clear how to implement the measures, what are the measures, how we will be measured and evaluated if we are in compliance or not, because you have to be in compliance with regulations. And but last year, for example, they introduced ISO standard that is a complement to the other information security standard of ISO, which straightforward explains, actually, it recommends to implement the whole information security framework from the standard as the best practice. But even the small companies started to think about information security. The general awareness is very high. And we have other regulations related to agencies in Europe. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we've managed to organize the European network for information security, all the agencies where you can report security incident, how they communicate, how they support the business. We identified the key businesses for the different nationalities, and we put like special regulations for them. So it's going to the right direction with these laws, regulations. It's just we are not yet there, but it's because of this pandemic situation this year, everything was a bit more confusing, and yeah, we've made a lot of mistakes again because we had to do different things, and we had to change a lot of operational processes internally, and it was a bit of a stress here in Bulgaria and in Europe. I believe in America as well.
Yeah. Actually, so talking, I should do this for I'm a European, as you can probably tell. I'm just going to show people where Bulgaria is.
Yeah, we are in Europe.
You're in Europe for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if we do need a little refresher. So let me just quickly show people on a map. Not that they couldn't do this themselves, but there we are. There, Bulgaria, my friend. So yeah, GDPR. So give us a refresher. How many countries in Europe right now? There's like 26?
27.
27, part of the union now. Okay, so 27 is part of the union. Okay.
We're counting UK.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And actually, you live in a very interesting area, right? Isn't it? And to be fair to most people who don't grow up in Europe, we don't know too much about these countries over here, right? You know, there's you know, there's no cars being exported and things like that, right? So it just doesn't put things on the map for us, you know. Whereas, you know, countries that export goods and services, we just tend to hear about them a little bit more. Okay, so you're in maybe it's a hotbed. I mean, tell us, as far as security risks in Bulgaria, what are the primary concerns?
We are border of the European Union. As you can see, from one side we have Greece, then Turkey, Macedonia, Kosovo. These are countries that are not in European Union.
Mm-hmm.
The most interesting thing for Bulgaria with regard to internet, let's say, is that the big pipes, let's say, with the internet traffic are going through Bulgaria. And that's why we are the country, one of the countries with very good internet connection.
Why?
If you know, we have very, very good, very high quality internet connection. We are well we're well connected, because the main traffic of internet is going through the country, through Bulgaria. Yeah, it's very important. And what's further, we are one of the countries that are very well developed in the technology aspect. We have a lot of developers here in Bulgaria, and a lot of businesses in Europe outsource their business here in Bulgaria for the developers units. So we have a lot of companies that are outsourcing processes here in Bulgaria, because we have a lot of technical guys here and girls. So it's very interesting. Economically, we are not so well developed, but we are trying. But from the technical perspective, we are very well represented.
Yeah.
Financial status of the country.
So with the GDPR then, I hadn't thought about that. Awareness for small businesses. That's amazing. And for the citizenry as well. Tell us then, okay, granted, 2020 has been a tough year with COVID. What's the progress? Like so you brought awareness, right? That's what GDPR does. I mean, I must admit, I look at GDPR, Jenny, and I kind of go, you know, it's a little bit of a weight, right? It's a weight on my shoulders. You know, now you've chosen to lift up that weight voluntarily as a consultant specific to things like privacy. So good for you. Tell us.
Aspect of information security and the technology. The legal part, I'm not good at.
Yeah. Well, tell us some of the other good news stories about GDPR to make us Americans feel more pleasant about it.
It was both sides, actually. From one side, the regulation, from the other side, people, the citizens. They started to think about their personal data, and they started to realize that actually they're sharing too much. And they started paying attention to the websites, what they're asking for, how they share their information, where and how they provide their consent about this information. Is it possible to take back the information, the right to be forgotten? Can they practice this right in Bulgaria? This is, from both sides, it was very important, because the business got requests from their clients, the citizens, and the regulation from the other side. And they were kind of very well motivated to implement the best, to present themselves that they have the best measures in their organization, and their clients should feel safe when they are choosing them, for example, for a service. So it was helpful. I get it was helpful because it's really good that it's not 100% secure. I mean, not all the organizations implemented everything it has to be, but we are on the right direction.
Huh. So you mentioned something there that clients of businesses, obviously, I think they have they need to have the information available to them so that they know if I give my credit card, my date of birth, whatever it might be, it's going to be safe with this organization. Is there sort of a badge of honor or a stamp or I hate to say it, all these digital badges, because I must admit, some people get excited about them. I just don't. I'm just not a fan of digital badges. But it would be interesting if a company has gone through the rather horrific, I'll say, compliance procedure to become GDPR compliant. They should be recognized, because then as a consumer, I can go, oh, hang on, I'll go shop there. Is that happening? Is there a badge of honor or something?
Yes, I think slowly we are going to this direction, that we are going to recognize the companies that are complying with the best practices and the recommendations by the regulator, and to be like a certified company. You can be certified against ISO standard for information security, for example, and quality assurance. So following this example, they will be certified against this regulation to be recognized as a company that are following the best practices, and you have to recertify it in a certain period of time in order to show the world that you are following the regulation. But we were having difficulties to understand the regulation.
Yeah, so are we.
Yes. It was like very broad statements, and a lot of misunderstandings. We had to clarify every sentence of this regulation, and we were not sure what's exactly required. And the regulator was not sure, because many times I've been asking directly the regulator what's behind this sentence and how this will be proved to be compliant, because you have to have I'm an IT auditor, you have to have the control. I mean, if you don't have the control, you cannot say if you are compliant with this or not. So where is the control? I'm looking for the objectives here.
What do you mean? What do you mean by control, Jenny? You mean you want? Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, in the IT audit, for example, you have in order to check if company follows the good practice or any regulation that you are going to check against the organization, you have to know what's the objective of this regulation, and by finding what's the objective, you have to put the controls. For example, when you are entering your telephone number in the field where it's required, it has to accept only numbers.
Oh, okay. You're talking about all of that. Yeah. So what you mean is control of the process of surrendering information. Got you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to have this control framework or control metrics for each and every process that you have internally in the organization, IT processes, in order to say, okay, let's check if you're compliant with this. Do you have this control implemented in your organization? And how do you get this objective in your organization?
Okay.
And what we have in the regulation is just sentences for how it should be, but how we can achieve this, it was not explained. And actually the ISO standard that was introduced later last year is showing the how process, how you can actually be compliant, because you have specific objectives with controls, and you can take those and you can see your organization against this.
So sorry to interrupt you. If I've understood this correctly, then we have GDPR, but we didn't know how to implement. So GDPR grabbed ISO standards, connected it to the GDPR and said, okay, this is how you do it. Is that right?
Yes, yes, from the technical perspective.
Yeah.
From the legal perspective, we have the regulation, but we, the technical people, we need like something more
Yeah.
to make
And
sales.
because, and so was that an oversight by the people who put GDPR together, or was that planned?
It was coming, I think, from the previous directive before the regulation. I mean, we had this in Europe. I mean, this is not something new. The way how it was presented was new because the regulation applies directly to every country. And before we have directive, European directive for protection of personal data, and European and the directives as a document, European document, you have to implement in national regulations, laws and regulations. So we have a national law with regard to data protection. And this time Europe decided to put the regulation directly to apply to all EU countries. And in the previous document, in the directive, they were, the technical measures were listed. Really,
Oh,
it was,
really?
yeah, we had an attachment at the end of the document, and they said, okay, from the administrative perspective, you have to have this implemented. From the technical perspective, you have to have this implemented. And actually, there was a very, very straightforward mechanism how you can define your the impact of the possible impact to the information, because the organizations were grouped in different groups, and depending on the group and what kind of information you are processing and storing, you you can apply this kind of technical measures, straightforward, direct. And in the new regulation, it was just a regulation without the technical measures. And we were kind of surprised at the beginning, because how to implement it, what's wrong, what's right for the regulator.
Was GDPR written by politicians? Is that why?
Yeah, I think so.
Seriously, yeah. I mean, you know,
Yes.
this is a problem oftentimes. Yeah, yeah. Because not on the street, as it were. Because the thing that you just described, I found that really interesting. You know, that a company, if you have a form field for phone numbers, only a phone number needs to fit in there. This is a monumental amount of work for corporations. So is the European Union, whoever does the fining, I don't know if it's some kind of legal organization, are they being lenient in the early years, or are they going after people? Are people paying fines? Is this actually happening?
Before, the fines were not so extreme.
Yeah.
The last one was like very, very high amounts of fines, and people were scared and stressed what's going on,
Yeah.
because we were not sure if we are 100% compliant. But there was a period, like transition period, where we can implement all the measures that it was not clear which are the measures. But anyway, we had this transition period. It was challenging. It's still challenging for most of the people and most of the organizations, because there are some sentences and requirements that are still questionable. Like, you know, the technology, I mean, you have to follow the information, and information flows through different network devices, and there are always tracks of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, is this personal information about personal transaction? How far we can go? Can we control everything during the whole path, or we are focusing only on separate parts? And these kind of questions are still not 100% clear. And the most interesting question about the IP address was very, very interesting. While people were discussing it, is it the personal data, the IP address? If it's dynamic, is it a personal data? And you can actually, how far you can go to the device, not to the person. I mean, okay, I mean,
Right.
yeah, you don't know who is behind the device. So how personal is that? But the European Union decided that this will be considered personal data.
Wow.
So
You know how we do privacy in America? We don't. I mean, I'm obviously joking, but there are that I'm aware of. Again, you know, so we're October, whatever, early October 2020. Right now in the United States, so the leader, I believe, or the first person, I shouldn't say leader, is California with the California Privacy CCPA, California Privacy Prevention Act, something like that. So they had that act. Last year, New York came out, this is my area, with SHIELD. SHIELD is an acronym for something. It's 12 pages long, which is mind-blowing. And so I went to a lecture just to kind of understand, you know, what's this about, right? And the lawyer was explaining it. So again, not a technologist, right? So it's not interesting to me that non-technologists are writing all of this stuff down, but I think it's a far cry from what will be a smooth process when we've got lawyers and politicians making technology decisions. It's tough, right? Anyway, the way he explained it to me, I was kind of amused, and I think it was a little tongue-in-cheek, but it was a good way to remember it, is, why is it only 12 pages? It's ridiculous. He said, because the law courts are going to decide. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, what will happen is, so as an example, if you're a business in New York and you are handling a customer in, let's say, Colorado, and so Europeans need to think of the United States like 50 individual countries, right? That's the way you go. It's the federal government really doesn't have power like that does in other countries around the world. And so in these 50 individual countries, if you're a business in New York and has a client in Colorado, let's say, you can be fined for not applying the SHIELD policies to the clients in Colorado. But in Colorado, my understanding right now is that they don't have a privacy law over there. And so what happens is it'll go to the courts. And I said, well, why would you do that? That's ridiculous. That's expensive. And the people will be punished and hurt. He said, well, not quite necessarily. He said, in America, it's business first. This is why you get so much innovation out of the United States, right? In Silicon Valley, all these unbelievably amazing companies. And so he said, because it's business first, what we're going to do is allow people to run forward in business, trip up, and then the people get to decide through a legal process, and this will take years, obviously, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And during that time, some people, unfortunately, will be, I'll use the word victims, of the fact that we haven't quite figured it out yet. So they will get fined, and a few people in a row perhaps, but after a while, the public will say, hey, that's not cool, don't do that. And they'll point their finger to the politicians and law courts, and then they'll change. But what it's got to take to get there will be a few people are going to get hurt in the process. Look, life is unfair, so we can cry about it, or we can just do what you did and stand up and bear the weight in life and move forward. But you know, that's how they're deciding over here. Very different from Europe, right?
It's like, I can understand that this is bottom-up approach. If
right,
we're
right.
about, and we have another approach, top-down approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Regulation, and then,
Now I know why you've set up your own business to manage this GDPR monster that you're wrestling to the ground. Well done. That's cool.
Topic. Yeah. I mean, people are confused, really. And here we have the same problem here. We cannot recognize the exact expert. Who can give us the broad knowledge about GDPR? Some companies consider this as a legal issue. Other companies consider this as an IT issue. Other companies like information security and cybersecurity issue. But actually, it's the combination. That's why when I said about GDPR that I'm expert, I don't know the legal part. I mean, I know it, but not professionally, like at the expert level. And this kind of projects, when I'm doing this kind of projects, we are doing it together with legal people. I mean, they do the legal part, I do the technical part, because it's a joint project.
Okay, so your recommendation to somebody in the Americas, certainly if they're dealing with GDPR customers and clients in Europe, is get a consultant like you to understand the technical aspects of GDPR, absolutely have legal in the room at the same time. Who else should be in that room?
Business process owners.
Business process owners, right.
You have to identify the data, and who else can tell you more about the data? The business process owners can give you this information.
And I want to come back to the data in a second, identifying the data. Who else needs to be in that room?
Some kind of analyst, because from the IT perspective, I mean, how the database is organized, you need the IT to explain the technical part of specific systems and communication, network experts, because this information will communicate through the network. You have different kind of experts from the IT department for sure. You can involve HR, because this will affect the personal data of your employees as well, and they have to tell you what they're collecting, how many years they save this kind of information, what's the other regulation, because you have other regulations actually from the perspective of HR, from HR perspective. So you have you will need a lot of experts.
Yeah, and oh, hang on, what did I want to come back to? I said I wanted to come back to this. Sorry?
Business process owners?
Yeah, that's right. It was it was identifying where the data is. How are we doing that? How is that? Like, that seems like a really difficult task, right?
It's a difficult task, actually. Yeah. The first scanning in identification of the data, because you have to understand, first you have to categorize the data, just to think about what kind of data is collected from the different processes in order to make a catalog with the data, and then to see where is this data stored, who has access to this data. And then you have three elements, actually: people, technology, process. You have the business process, you have the supporting technology, and you have the access to this information, because GDPR is concerned about when the information, where the information is stored, how is processed also.
Yeah.
Who has to process the information.
Do you remember about 10 years ago, DLP, data leak or data loss prevention, right, was a big thing. Everybody was going, oh yeah, at last, let's do DLP. This was before GDPR was kind of a buzzword, and Shield and CCPA. And what we found was that people couldn't do it because they had all these servers spinning for like 12 months trying to categorize the data. Most people just gave up.
Yes.
We're going to be there again.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. And I think this should be done on stages, phases. Let's say, that's why I said that we always should start with a smaller scope. Choose one or two business processes, the most critical key business processes, or where the key data or sensitive information is stored, to categorize the information and to focus on the most important, when the information is facing the outside world, for example, very critical. So it has to be like ongoing process on phases, and you have to start with smaller scope to extend the scope and to make it till the end, because also your business is developing further. I mean, you saw what happened with this COVID. We just changed the way we make business. We went online, we changed the business processes, internal operation processes, just like that, with one click, without making risk assessment. Everything has changed, and it's like very scary.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Well, listen, Jenny, I mean, we're coming to the top of our allotted time. I would love the people of the audience, because we'll archive this. It'll be on cybertalk.org. For those in the audience today, we also have an attachments tab. You'll see that in the somewhere. The people will put that together. And if you look at the attachments tab, we're going to load it up with some information for you on DLP and GDPR, and probably Shield and California as well. Jenny, tell the audience, if they wanted to get hold of you, what are your socials? How do people get in touch with you?
I'm visible in LinkedIn. This is the professional way how I present myself.
Perfect.
Everything else, it's too private for me. I mean, I have like Facebook account, which is for the
LinkedIn. It's just for professional. It's just for professionals.
Yeah.
So Jenny Boneva, LinkedIn, and just type in Jenny Boneva, Bulgaria. Yeah, exactly. And you should pop up. All right, good. Well, wonderful. Listen, I'm very, very grateful. This was a great conversation. Thank you so much. I actually find you quite inspiring. I love your attitude. So really appreciated the fact that you've been on our call today. And hey, I would love to get you back in 2021 so that we can hear more about, hopefully, the successes of GDPR.
Oh, that will be great. Thanks very much for this invitation. The pleasure was all mine, I would say.
All right. Wonderful. My pleasure. Good luck. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.